Feels like my glasses have like a little bit of a... Okay, anyways. Hello! Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy you're here. This is a very highly requested video. General information about NCARB, AXP hours, AREs, etc. A little disclaimer before the video. Please do your own research. Like, all this advice is kind of based off of advice that I've heard from other professionals, just tips that I've gotten from friends, and also like my own personal research. But I would still recommend do your own research so that it like helps you understand it in the best way possible for you. But yeah, let's get started. I think we should start off with probably like the beginning, right? So you've just graduated college with an architecture degree. Now what? Or if you're like in college and you have internship hours and stuff like that and you want to log them and put them towards your like architecture exam requirement, internship requirement, this will kind of break that down for you. Graduated, you got your degree, amazing, congratulations, so exciting. Unfortunately, you are not an architect yet. You are an architectural designer. You can't technically call yourself an architect until you've passed your 6 to 7 exams and completed a certain amount of internship / work experience hours. And all of this, the hours, the exams, are housed within like an organization or a registration board, and it's called NCARB, which is the National Council of Architectural Registration Board. And that kind of houses your AXP hours, which is essentially like your internship hours, and also helps you take your exams for your architecture. So these are your AREs, which is your architect registration exam. They vary state to state. Some states will require 6 exams, some will require 7. California is one of those states that requires 7. Some states also require extra hours to be completed within that state. So that's stuff that I'll hit on later, but that's kind of just like the baseline of like the structure of the organization. And in order to be able to appear for the exams, you need an accredited degree. What is an accredited degree? This can either be a 5-year B.Arch program, which is what I completed at University of Oregon, or you can do a 4-year program and a 2 to 3 year master's program, depending on where you go. I would recommend, if you're first starting out and you're looking at architecture schools and deciding where you want to go, 100% please look and make sure that the college is has an accredited architecture program. That is super important if you want to become an architect later in your career. Kind of just like understanding NCARB a little bit more, I think we should talk a little bit about like categories of NCARB, like what are the different categories, because you just don't complete like the total amount of hours, which is 3,740 hours. You just don't complete it like with random work. Like, this is like you have to complete a certain amount for each of the different categories, and there are 6 different categories, and I'm going to go through them and then talk a little bit about like what kind of falls under each of those categories, or at least my understanding of what falls under them. First, we start off with practice management, which you have to complete 160 hours for. And this is kind of like business operations, leadership, and like service work. This, like, if I were to explain this, because that obviously, that like when I first heard it, that didn't really make sense to me. So this is essentially like, what does the principal do? What do office directors do? They do like contracts, or understanding like staffing needs, or how the office or firm runs, like stuff like that. The second category is project management, which is kind of like bidding and contract, if you do any RFQs, general project management, leading projects, staffing, like if you're like oh, you do this work, you're doing this work, organizing staffing and stuff. So that's kind of my understanding of project management, and you need 360 hours of this category for internship or work experience wise. Programming analysis is the third one, which is essentially like what you would be doing in your first couple weeks of studio. So that's like massing, site analysis, concept design, planning, zoning, all that type of stuff. Kind of just understanding what you're gonna need there, the area, all that sort of stuff. Kind of like the beginning of your design process. And that's usually gonna be like 260 hours of internship hours. And now these are like the larger categories, which is project planning and design, which is kind of your schematic design, so SD and DD, which is design development, and then construction costs, if you're doing like engineering systems, codes, all that sort of thing. That falls under project planning and design, which is a whopping 1,080 hours that are needed to get this checked off. And then your next one is product development and documentation, which is your construction documents and like more refined design development that you're doing in this one. So if you have any construction drawings or anything of that sort, that usually falls under project development and documentation. And this is the largest category, which is 1,520 hours. And then you've got your last category, which is construction and evaluation, which I view it as like when you are actually visiting something. You're going on site, you're going to the permit office, you're doing site walks, you're doing field measurements, punch walks, like anything of you physically going on site or going somewhere for a project, I view it as construction and evaluation. And that's 360 hours. Which gives us a total of 3,740 hours of internship, which if you start like your work experience or your internship hours right out of college, like you don't do any internships in college and stuff, it usually will take around 2 to 3 years to complete the hours. The exams are paired with all the 6 categories. So you've got your practice management exam, you've got your project management, your construction and evaluation, programming and analysis, project development and documentation, project planning and design. And those are like separate exams, and essentially it's like testing you on the like experience that you've done in that category. Like I don't have that much knowledge about the architecture exams yet because I'm still in the process of finding out more information about them. But so that video will probably come when I've made a little bit more progress on that point. That's kind of like my general understanding of the 6 different categories. I guess we'll talk a little bit about like logging hours. How does that work? So I started logging my hours, I think my second internship when I was in Seattle was when I started logging my hours. And for NCARB you have to do it's a yearly subscription, and if you're working at a place full-time, they will pay for your subscription or your annual fee depending on the firm. So I paid for it for 2 years, and then my 3rd year when my job now has paid for my annual fee, which is amazing and I love it. Saves me money, you know? So with the internship hours, if you do an internship during college, you make a heavy dent in your overall like hour like total. And I think it's really important, and it's like if you want to get your license really quickly out of college, it's pretty important to like get started on that as soon as you can. One thing you should know is that your internship hours, like let's say you finish your internship in September of 2024, you have 6 months to log those hours and get them approved, or else they'll count as half the amount. So let's say you do like 300 hours that summer, they'll only count for 150 if you do it after the 6-month mark. So I would recommend get it done in the 6 months. Let's say it's not possible and you're like, oh, I don't know if it's worth it. Still do it. It's still completely worth it. And I think that like whatever it adds up. So like even if it's a little bit, like it does add up and it does make a difference later on. So like now, like me logging my hours for 2 years of internship during the summers has made like such a big dent already. Like I think now I'm like almost a third in, which is like kind of amazing because I've like really put in the work and like logged my hours and stuff. So yeah, that would be my tip. I would recommend logging your hours every 1 to 3 months. Every month can be a lot, so I usually do them in bulk and I do them like 2 to 3 months, every 2 to 3 months. And that is always helpful. And it's also like the first step you need to do is find an advisor or someone who would sign off on your hours. This is usually an architect in your firm that is licensed and is willing to sign off on hours. So I had my internships, I had to ask someone like the HR or anybody essentially to be like, oh, like who would sign off on my hours, and they usually will be like, okay, this person. You email them and you have to input their information when you like log your hours and stuff. But yeah, usually like if they don't like sign off on them within like a week or so, you get like a reminder to like ping them and let them know to sign off on them. So sometimes like people get busy and like they don't see it, so it's just nice to have like that reminder for them. And then I would also recommend to do your own logging of hours. This is kind of like my tracker for NCARB hours. I'm gonna be looking down and explaining it. So I kind of have like a template. I have kind of like my breakdown of like what each thing is, kind of like a cheat sheet a little bit. And then I've got like they've got like a NCARB overall area map of like the categories and like what exactly like they fall under. And then I've got kind of like a demo, so we'll walk through the demo one. So I usually like put the day or the date, and then I put like the amount of hours that I allocated or did work for one area. So I don't know, 1 hour going on a punch walk or a site walk. That will fall under construction evaluation, and I'll usually write like some sort of notes about it, like punch walk or like project X, this thing. So that's kind of how I split it up, and then I like write all the hours. And usually I like to put like a total amount at the end, some sort of sum. And then I also like to do like if there's holidays, if something's missing, like all that type of stuff. And after, I have like a system here where it like tallies it up based off of like the different categories in Google Sheets. And this is kind of like the breakdown of it, of what I've completed. And usually I will just check. This helps me kind of like figure out like, okay, I spent these many hours on practice management, I spent these many hours of programming analysis. And then when I have logged hours and have got them approved, then I move the hours to total, and I'll like put them in here. Let's say like in I don't know, 20, and then I did 40. Nothing here. Let's say I did like 300 here, 20 here, like maybe 5 hours. So that's 385, which is pretty good. And this will populate my chart that I have here, and I have a column that's like required, remaining, like what's left, and then like the hours that I've done so far. It's kind of just the sum of that, and then this subtracts the two and tells me how much is remaining. And then I'm a little bit weird and I like to see like kind of a number of how much time is left. If I like stick on this track of like 40 hours a week, 52 weeks in a year, how many years would take me to complete it. So this is showing like 1.6 if I continue at this rate to complete my hours. So that's kind of my breakdown of my spreadsheet that I use, that I've made and used. It's very nice to have like a digital record of your work. So I think like one, for your sake, for you to be like, okay, like this is where this is the categories that I'm doing a lot more in, less in, and it's kind of like you can update it daily, so you don't forget. So like when you're like going to log hours, you're like, oh, I actually don't remember like how many hours I spent on this. So, and I think like it's just easier to see it this way. And the second thing is NCARB can sometimes come back and be like, we'll like randomly pick people and be like, oh, like, did you actually spend this much time on this? Like, what did you do? Like, let's say you spent like 4 hours on construction evaluation, and I'm like, what did you spend these 4 hours on? Like, what were you doing? Show us proof, essentially. And then you have to be like, okay, well, I did this, I did this, I did this. And then they'll be like, Okay, but if you don't have that written down, then it will be harder for you to find that information later on, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of like my breakdown of NCARB and AXP and stuff. So please let me know if that helped, if we liked this video. It's kind of, obviously, like I'm still in the process of finding out more information about AREs and like the exams itself and studying for those, so I don't have that much information about those yet. But I think like later down the line I'll probably make a video about like architecture exams, like how to study, what to do, tips and tricks, all that sort of thing once I like start getting in that whole realm. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If there's any other like architecture related videos that you'd want to see, please comment them down below. I am hoping to make more architecture related advice videos, and also just like more videos in general this year. So please let me know if there's anything specific that you'd like to see, any advice that you'd like. Obviously, like I am more than happy to answer any questions about the degree and about the field to the best of my ability. So hopefully this is a little bit helpful, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions. But my next video, I'm kind of excited for it. Hopefully it works out like I want it to. I can't believe we're in February already. This is crazy. It's like February 7th. Like, excuse me? That's crazy. That's wild. That's crazy. So yeah, I need to go finish up some more work. So I will talk to you all later. Mwah.